Peace and blessings. This is Rayesa Gheewala, the Divorced Muslimah Coach. And we're here another week of weekly wisdom. And today we are talking about the process of divorce or your experience of it, right? So the divorce process, just like any other process, it's, there's a way to go through it, right? Just like any other big life-altering change, such as marriage, graduation, moving into a home, moving out of a home, those are all things that require logistics, right? That require a process of things to go through from being, for example, from going from living in one home to leaving that and getting out of another, going into another home, from moving out of one home and going into another. Just like that process, there is a process to divorce, from being a couple, a family unit, to uncoupling. So, I want to really today hop on and just talk about the beliefs that we have around divorce, because that is really going to dictate how we navigate through this process. If you're just hopping on, come and tell me who you are, come say salam, and let me know, what you want to know about this topic. Because when we understand what our beliefs are, what our limiting beliefs are, then we will understand why it is we're behaving the way we do. Because the bottom line is our actions are going to reflect our deepest beliefs. So the more we can realize that and understand that, the better idea we're going to have of, am I going through this in the right way? Am I going through this divorce in the best way possible, in the way that I'm supposed to be, according to if it's in a manner that's pleasing to Allah. And again, I want to just reiterate that it's not the issue of the divorce, it's whether we're doing it in a manner pleasing to Allah, because Allah has, given us the process of divorce in the Quran and the Sunnah, and so we already have that. It's just a matter of we following it and what's getting in the way. So the first thing, hey Malati, good to see you. The first thing is, I asked this question and similar questions to this in our group, like, what comes to mind when you think divorce? And, there was a lot of negativity, a lot of things, and I'll just kind of list them out. One of them was fears, right? Being alone, living alone, handling things on your own as a separate entity when you kind of had a support system before, right? Or partner. So there's all this panic, there's anxiety, depression even seems to be common when you think about divorce, and the truth is, it can definitely feel a lot easier to stay in the comfort zone of the misery that you already know than to venture out into the unknown. And that's why people stay as long as they do, and that is why people stay and go back and stay and go give chances after chances after chances without anything ever changing, right? And you do the same thing over and over again, you're going to get the same result. And so we know that's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So, the next thing would be worry, right? There's lots of worry when you think about divorce. Worries come to mind. And one of the big things is finances, right? So what is that all about? That is really about your risk, right? And so where does risk come from? Where does sustenance come from? And are we latching onto that source, or are we just going through a whole bunch of what ifs and stories in our mind and operating by those stories and thoughts, right? And so one of the other things was being afraid of raising kids as a single parent, right? And so, for things around like kids, I really would encourage you to think of it as, who is the owner of those kids, right? And what is required of you as a parent who is just a placeholder, a caretaker, a beneficiary of this child that has been entrusted to you. You don't own that child. They don't belong to you. So what is your part as a parent, whether you're a single parent or you have a partner, you're in a marriage or you're not in a marriage? And so getting clear on what's required of you. And the bottom line is, I'm just going to very generally say what is required of us as parents is to nurture the connection between the child and Allah, which is the child is a servant of Allah and his or her master owner is Allah, right? So our job as being entrusted with this amana is to nurture that connection, right? We're not the owner, we're not the master, we're not, the boss, if you will, in terms of controlling them, right? So that's just a way to look at that. And then also remembering who's in charge of outcomes, right? So if we're doing the best we can to nurture our child, it's not about us trying to control how our child turns out. It's more about doing our part and leaving however way the child turns out in Allah's hands, because we don't have control over that. We don't have the ability we're not meant to be able to force and control how the child turns out or how they choose to live their life. Our job is just to nurture that foundation. And so remembering who is in charge of outcomes and knowing that that's not our domain, ours is intention and effort, and for us to stay in our lane and not go into Allah's lane of how outcomes turn out, because then that would be like competing with Allah, and that's just ends up in a big mess. And so we want to focus more on, and I'm saying relating to kids, right? Because that's a big stressor, but you can apply this to anything. It's not how you want how you think things should turn out, how you want things to turn out, but more importantly, for us, outcomes are not relevant because that is not even our domain. We're not even asked to think about, okay, well, how do you want this to turn out? A lot of times people say that. They think about, how do you want this to turn out? Well, that's not the right frame of mind to think, how do I want this to turn out? When we ask that type of question, we ask it in a way are we answering it from a manner that would be pleasing to Allah? So basically, our job in the situation of separating or co-parenting or an uncoupling is not how we think or we want things to turn out, but what is Allah looking for me in this moment, in this situation, in terms of my response? You have the circumstance, you have the situation, right? Which are a lot of times out of our hands. So what is Allah looking for me? He's looking for my intention and my effort, and am I responding to this in a manner that's pleasing to Allah? And so that's just a little bit of state of mind of how to address this. And one of the other things that popped up in terms of how people are thinking about divorce, and the reason I want to pause for a moment and just clarify the reason why I'm talking about all of this is because when you see this word divorce, right? And you think fear, panic, anxiety, loss, destruction, loneliness, single parenting, destiny of the kid. You think about all of these harrowing thoughts around this word, right? So it's like a big flashing red light, and it's of course you just want to run away. You want to step back. You're not going to be thinking like, you're not going to be wanting to get close to it, right? Or thinking that you can handle it. But that's not the case. Of course you can handle it. Of course you can separate and divorce in a way that's pleasing to Allah, as Allah has instructed us in the Quran, right? So that's why we have to understand what our beliefs are about divorce, and are they the right beliefs, the right way of thinking. So let me get back. I digress a little bit. Let me get back to one of the last things that a lot of people get stuck with is feelings of guilt, blame, and shame. And these are real feelings, right? It is your reality because your thinking about your divorce, about your situation, is what is creating your reality. And in fact, every moment of your life, you are experiencing life from your own thinking. Whether you can see that or not, it's the truth. And it's such a simple sentence with such profound meaning and implications, which I don't expect you to get it right now. I myself, when I learned this truth that my reality is being created by my thinking, it didn't really absorb for me until after 8-9 months of studying this, which is called the inside out paradigm. And really now after 4 years of deep immersion and understanding in this paradigm and all of the implications, I'm living with this knowing and this understanding, which has affected and transformed the way I live, the way I act, the way I am, the way I show up. So getting back to the guilt, feelings of guilt, blame, and shame. You're feeling, you're thinking. So there's thoughts. There's, judgmental, blameful, shameful thinking that's happening around your situation. And so that's how we can understand that. And, things like not being good enough, not being able to feel confident that you can make good decisions. And look, making decisions, even if you've never made decisions, all it requires, remember, this is a process. And you need to be able to make good decisions with clarity, with wisdom, with integrity and honesty, kindness and fairness and respect, like Allah asks us to do. But we cannot do that when we have a busy, cluttered mind that's full of overthinking, right? It's just like this mental haze and fog. We're not going to be able to have clear judgment, good thinking and decision making with a busy, cluttered mind. So once you have a clear, quiet mind, then it's all logistics, right? And that will come natural to you. You'll be able to navigate coolly, calmly, level-headedly, and your brain and your mind will work properly. It won't be in survival mode and panic mode and frustration mode. Right? And you'll be able to navigate and fall into the process of separating in a manner pleasing to Allah, with kindness, with fairness, with respect, with tawakkul and taqwa, and all of that He tells us is the process, right? And it will turn into a process just like any other process. There's a process to getting married. There's a process, when you buy a home. There's a process, when you want to apply for school. So all of these things. And the goal really of today was to understand and become aware of what is your thinking, what is your beliefs around this word divorce, because that is going to dictate how you experience it. That is going to dictate how you behave in this process. And that's just a little bit of what I actually teach about in my workshop that I did last week. And I'm actually doing it again this week on Sunday because it was so powerful, had so many great reviews about it, that I'm doing it again this Sunday on April 19th from 1:30 to 4:30 p.m. Pacific time. And I'm going to go deeper into how you can get closer to that state of being. Now, remember, going from who you are right now with what you know to learning, knowing, and transforming into living that way is also a process and takes time. And that's what I'm gonna share with you, what this process is. It's called Divorce in a Manner Pleasing to Allah. And so join me. I'm gonna leave the link in the comments below. And I want to know if this resonated with you, Sadia, Wanda. What are you taking away from here? I want to hear your takeaways. I want to hear your questions. Let me know if you can type them now or type them later on, and I will respond back to you. But thank you, ladies, for joining me. And it was great to see you all. And I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful day. I hope that you are getting outside and out in the outdoors, in nature, and just taking it one day at a time, one moment at a time. Thanks for joining, ladies. Peace and blessings.